Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Open Bible Church San Jose Online. We welcome you to our service, and we invite you to check in at this time. If you will just text to the number 408-547-4911, 408-547-4911. Text that you are participating this morning, that you're in attendance. We would greatly appreciate that. If you have checked in with us before, please text the word "here" and your first name. If you've never checked in with us before, we have a special offer just for you. If you will text the word "connect" and then follow those prompts, and please give us your contact information, first and last name, how we can get a hold of you, we will send you a Starbucks gift card for $5 so that you can enjoy a cup of coffee on us. We appreciate you joining us this morning. We welcome you, and we invite you to be a part of our network as we are encouraging people to join us, whether online or in person, as we communicate the gospel and encourage people to follow after Jesus with their whole heart. This morning, you can also take that same number and you can give. We appreciate those of you that attend the online service and also give or donate to the church ministries, and we appreciate you doing that. If you text the word "give" and follow the prompts, it'll direct you to the website, church website, giving portal, and you can go ahead and give an amount, and then just give us an idea how you want those funds directed. We appreciate you and your generosity and your support of our church ministries. Also, there's another great way you can stay in touch with us through this app, is by texting the word "prayer." If you want us to pray with you, if you have a prayer request that you would like to share, text the word "prayer" and then give us some details on how you would want us to pray for you, and we would be able and love to do that. We have a prayer team that prays every week for all the needs that come through the information site on the church, and we would love to be able to join with you in prayer. Now, if your prayer is more of a personal note and you would just like for the staff to pray for that, please let us know, and we'll have the staff part of a prayer team for that. Otherwise, we have a broader prayer team, and if you don't mind that information going out, we're going to have them praying with you and for you as well. So we're so glad you're here. In just a moment, worship is going to begin, and then we're going to head into part 4 of our 5-week series on New Year, New Hope. And we're so glad you're here with us today. God bless you.
Alone in my sorrow and dead in my sin, lost without hope, no place to begin. Your love made a way to let mercy come in. When death was arrested, my life began. Ash was redeemed, only beauty remains. My orphan heart was given a name. My mourning grew quiet, my feet rose to dance. When death was arrested, my life began. Oh, your grace so free washes over me. You have made me new, now life begins with you. It's your endless love pouring down on us. You have made us new, now life begins with you. Released from my chains, I'm a prisoner no more. My shame was ransomed, faithfully bore. He canceled my debt and he called me his friend. When death was arrested and my life began, oh, your grace so free washes over me. You have made me new, now life begins with you. It's your endless love pouring down on us. You have made us new, now life begins with you. Our Savior displayed on a criminal's cross. Darkness rejoiced as though heaven had lost. But then Jesus arose with all freedom in hand. That's when death was arrested and my life began. Oh, your grace so free washes over me. You have made me new, now life begins with you. It's your endless love pouring down on us. You have made us new, now life begins with you. Oh, we're free, free, forever we're free. Come join the song of all the redeemed. Yes, we're free, free, forever, amen. When death was arrested and my life began. We're free, free, forever we're free. Come join the song of all the redeemed. Yes, we're free, free, forever, amen. When death was arrested and my life began. When death was arrested and my life began. When death was
Peace, bring it all to peace. The storm surrounding me, let it break. At your name still, call the sea to still, the rage in me to still, every wave. At your name, Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, you silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus. Breathe, call these bones to live, call these lungs to sing once again. I will praise Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus.
Welcome back, everyone, and we are heading into part 4 of our 5-part series talking about a new year and new hope. When I first started this series 4 weeks ago, God impressed on my heart the importance of taking care of the things that you can control. Talking about attitude, talking about our environment, talking about our spending, which we did last week. And we've had several comments of people who were so appreciative of just the common sense approach to being able to control their spending. And today we're going to be approaching the same mindset dealing with our time. And then next week we're going to conclude our series with talking about controlling our choices. So as we focus on that, this is important to understand that we face the uncertainty of a new year, that as we face that uncertainty, we can be hit with so many things that are beyond our control, that in order to maintain our own personal sanity, we need to make sure that those things we can control are handled properly. So today is no different as we take a look at how we can better control or manage our time, and I'll explain that in just a moment. I love what Paul says in Ephesians chapter 5, verses 15 through 17. He says this. He says, "Be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity, because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is." And Paul's calling us out to be better managers of our lives, so to speak. And so the way we do this is we use the proverbial phrase of managing our time. So there's an entire field that's entitled, or a study that's called time management. In almost every business in America, consultants are hired to teach busy executives how to better manage their time. Time management is a hot topic. In his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey writes, "Time management is a misleading concept." This is what I want us to focus on this morning. He says, you can't really manage time. You can't delay it, speed it up, save it, or lose it. No matter what you do, time keeps moving forward at the same rate. The challenge is not to manage time, but to manage ourselves. So when we talk about controlling our time or managing our time this morning, we're mainly talking about managing ourselves and what that's going to look like. Harvey Mackay said, "Time is free, but it's priceless. You can't own it, but you can use it. You can't keep it, but you can spend it. Once you've lost it, you can never get it back." And I can't help but think about how that resonates in my heart today, to realize how valuable time is. The Bible uses another word. Instead of managing your time, it speaks of redeeming the time. And that is in the same verse of Scripture we read, but it's in a different version. And it says this. Paul said, "See then that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the time, because the days are evil." And he says this, making the most, in the NIV, making the most of every opportunity. But in the King James, he says, redeeming the time, because the days are evil. So I believe, first of all, that time is a gift. Second of all, I believe that time is the most valuable commodity we have. You may have heard of the analogy of time compared to money, but imagine that there is a bank that credits your account each morning with $86,400, and it carries over with no balance from day to day. In other words, every evening deletes whatever part of the balance you failed to use during the day. What would you do? Well, if you're anything like I believe you are, and what I would do, I would make sure I spend all of that money, every cent, before the day is over. But each of us does have a bank, and you've heard this before, and that is a bank of time. And every morning it credits you with 86,400 seconds. Every night it writes off as loss whatever of this you have failed to invest to a good purpose. It carries over to no balance. So if I were to ask you this morning, where do you struggle the most with controlling your time that you are given every day? What would your response be? Many of us may struggle with whether watching too much TV, too much social media, too much screen time on the computer, calling, texting friends and family, video games, working around the house, working around the garage, maybe too much time at work itself. I mean, we all have areas of our lives where we feel like we just bleed over into the time that we have been given, but yet probably fail to utilize properly. So if you were to change something about how you spend your time, what would you change? I think that's a great question for us to just circumspectly think about and to just mull on, because it's really important that we start thinking about this, and this is why we go further into the message. Whatever our answer would be, we must be diligent to handle it quickly and to handle it well. Edward Bell said this. He said, "The bell strikes one, we take no note of time, but from its loss." And a lot of times we don't realize the value of time until we realize what we've lost in time. So Psalm 39, verses 4 through 5 says this: "Show me, Lord, my life's end and the number of my days. Let me know how fleeting my life is. You have made my days a mere handbreadth. The span of my years is as nothing before you. Everyone is but a breath, even those who seem secure." So we're all given the same amount of time in a day. And the psalmist is calling out to God, saying, "God, show me how I'm spending my time." You know, when we want to take a look at what our future looks like or how many days we have left, we don't know that. And I'm going to show you that with this illustration right here. What I'm going to show you this morning is something that many of you are familiar with, and you know that this is called an hourglass. And when you turn it over, there is sand that begins to leave one area of the hourglass to go to the other. And when it is all done, then you will find all of the sand here and none of the sand up here. And if you could see what I see, there is a small trickle of sand that's starting to fill this lower globe. And the thing is this, what this sand represents is this represents the time that has passed. And this represents this globe up here with almost a full layer of sand in it. This represents the time that is to come. And when you look at this in terms of your life, what you will see is that we're very well aware of the sand that is in this globe, but in reality, we are not aware of how much sand is left. And so what happens is our sense of awareness is about this and this part right here where the sand is passing through, but we have no idea how much time is left in our lives. And you know, we're all given 24 hours. We try to lay things out according to our work day or our day of life, and then the next week, and then the next few weeks, the next month, and even to the next year. And that's kind of the focus and direction of our messages over these last 3 or 4 weeks, headed into our final message next week, is to be able to better prepare for this by controlling those things, as I said earlier, those things that we can control. Time being the focus of today, obviously. But when we when we take a look at this in reality, we realize that the only thing that we really have perspective of is right here. Now, we can make our plans and everything. The Bible says that a man may plan his course, but it is God who directs his steps. We're reminded that we're not in control of the time that is to come, but we can control how we approach that time, and that's what we're talking about this morning. I'm going to set this down. And the reminder is that we have to manage ourselves, to manage our time. And so as we look at the sands that represent our life, we see that we have a huge responsibility before us. So Ecclesiastes 3:11 says this. It says, "He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart, yet no one can fathom what God has done from the beginning to the end." So this eternity that's set in our hearts is in preparation for how we spend our time from now until eternity comes, not knowing how much time is from this moment now to when eternity becomes our reality. And so that's why it's so important that we learn how to manage ourselves to be able to manage our time. So the first thing I want to share with you that's really important is to plan and pause. To plan and pause. What is to plan? Plan is what we do at the beginning of our day. We start our day, maybe take 5 or 10 minutes just to take a look at what our day holds and things that we have scheduled and things that we have a general idea of what we want to do, what errands we need to run, what responsibilities we have, what projects at work, what things are going on with the kids, with our wife, with our husbands, with our family. And so we begin to have that in a concrete mode in which we're able to see. I'm visual, so I need to have that stuff in front of me, written down or out onto my calendar plan, all of that ready so that I know in some general way what I need to be preparing for the day. I have to-do lists, I have meetings scheduled, I have all of that ready, and I can do that within 5 to 10 minutes to take a broad overview about what my day and what my week may look like and how I plan and prepare for that. So to have a plan means that you have a way to measure whether or not your time has been productive. And at that point is going to be when we take that pause time, which is at the end of the day, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. And so when you're done with your day and you're in your pause time and you reflect back on what your day held, you're able to measure whether or not it was for lack of a better way to put it, a successful day. So how do we determine what is productive? It's kind of a sad illustration that I'm going to share with you, but it's all about perspective. And it's a story of a gentleman by the name of Brooke Adams. And he had a diary, and in his diary, he wrote a note about a special day when he was 8 years old. He wrote, "Went fishing with my father, the most glorious day of my life," he said. And throughout the next 40 years, in his own personal writings and in his own personal reflections, he mentions constant references to that day and the influence that it had on his life. Well, the ironic thing is his dad also kept a diary, and his dad was Charles Francis Adams, Abraham Lincoln's ambassador to Great Britain. He also had an entry in his diary about the same day. And again, perspective. And this is what he said. He said, "I went fishing with my son," and it said, "a day wasted." Wow. See, his son saw it as a time to spend with his dad. What a glorious day. But the dad, being so busy, he lost proper perspective. And he was able to say, "What a day wasted." What the father counted as a wasted day, the son thought it was one of the greatest days of his childhood. So when we pause and we look at what's productive, we have to keep things in perspective with our priorities. And again, we'll talk about that in just a little bit. So let's talk about the pause. So the planning is looking at your day, your week, things to come, and having a plan of action. The pause is when you're able to go back and reflect on whether that plan of action came into play. And that's a great way to take a look at and see if whether your time was used, managed productively or effectively. So this pause at the end of the day takes about 5 or 10 minutes also, and it's a review time to take a look at your the way you spent the last 18 hours or so. So what we have to do is during this time of pause, we have to begin to identify, when we're looking at how we spend our day, identify and illuminate those things that were time wasters. Those things that were time wasters. Maybe you spent too much screen time on your phones, on your computers, just chasing after frivolous tidbits of information, entertainment that just kind of just kept snowballing. A lot of times I find if I'm wasting time, it's getting into TikTok and seeing all the different things that are going on, whether it's cooking, whether it's exercise, whether it's entertainment, singing, whatever, and realizing that all of a sudden, before you know it, half hour, 45 minutes, an hour goes by, and all you've been doing is just this, scrolling on your phone. And so those are time wasters when it comes to just spending time in frivolous brain numbers, so to speak. But, excuse me. So I don't know if you have it on your phone, but I have a measurement that tells me after every week how much screen time I used for that week. And it's a great tool to be able to see whether or not you spent less time or more time than the week prior on your phones. So one of the things that we have to do as well is we have to learn how to manage the bleed time or the bleed over time from work into home. So when you're at work or when you're working, does it stay during the general hours that you have set aside that you're at work or be in work? One of the things when people started working from home, I think they lost a little bit of that sanctuary of being home versus being at work. And they find themselves spending more time working because they're not commuting. They're working during their breaks. They have to be more available at home for meetings and different things like that. And I think we've lost a little bit of that because of now working from home. And so one of the things, though, when I look at personally with Rachel and I, Rachel is the director of our preschool, and as I pastor this church, we both have two jobs that we're basically on call 24/7. And when we're home, sometimes something comes up that we have to handle that is a work matter. And we're supposed to be off, but we're never really off. And so some of you may have positions and roles and responsibilities like that. And so we have to be really careful and not allow that to bleed over into our personal time. And so we will say things to each other, okay, can you finish that up? I mean, so we hold each other accountable for the amount of time that we work, and if that work time bleeds over into our personal time, we have to manage that in a way in which it's not going to create issues or problems further down the road. You know what I'm talking about. So the idea of leisure time has really changed significantly ever since the dawn of the internet age. They have studies to prove that this has really been a factor in people's lives. A 2008 international survey of over 27,000 adults between the ages of 18 and 55 found that people spend 30% of their leisure time online. 30% of your leisure time online, not your work time, your leisure time. You're already online with work, but your leisure time, 30% of that they found has been spent online. And so it says, of all the countries that they studied, China is the worst. They say that within the nation of China, over 44% of their non-working hours are spent online. Boy, I tell you what, this whole internet revolution has really changed the perspective of how we value and prioritize what goes on with our lives regarding our time. Somebody quoted and said, nobody on their deathbed ever said, I wish I had spent more time at work. And I think we need to keep that into proper perspective. And another thing that we have to begin to identify during our times of pause, or those times of procrastination, where we kept putting off, and then almost like last minute we're just scrambling to get deadlines met, goals met, projects completed, all of that, and it becomes a major issue because procrastination becomes a ball and chain when it comes to how we effectively manage ourselves in the time frame mode of when we're supposed to be accomplishing these tasks and duties. So Ben Franklin said, do not squander time, for it is the stuff life is made of. Do not squander time. And I think we have to be careful in that, because that's what happens when we procrastinate. So then we also, in the midst of our pause time, we're also identifying and illuminating the priorities of our life. And we see that in the priorities that are unmet versus when we finally do get our priorities in place, what kind of progress we make in the tasks and duties at hand when it comes to managing our time. Psalm 90 verse 12 says, teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom. Teach us to number our days aright so that we may gain a heart of wisdom. There are 168 golden hours in each week. The average person will spend about 56 of those hours sleeping, 24 of those hours eating and in personal hygiene, 50 of those hours working or traveling to work. That means there's about 35 hours of discretionary time left over. That's about 5 hours per day. And how are we investing those hours? So during that time of pause, we see how we are investing our time in the area of priorities. And in priorities, what's important? So we need to make sure that we are spending time in relationships. In other words, my relationship with God. Have I taken time to surrender my time to Him for the day? Our relationship with my family. Have I prioritized my family time over all else? And let me tell you a little story. When we moved here back in 1994, and all the things that we had to deal with on the church level and on the preschool level, it was overwhelming. And so I was spending 7 days a week, felt like 8 days a week, working and trying to keep doors open, bills paid, progress moving forward. And I was so consumed with everything going on that when my second oldest was born, when Joshua was born, I literally cannot remember the first 2 years of his life because I was so busy trying to survive at work. And fortunately, my wife was able to bring me back to a place of reality and help me make some choices and some decisions in my life to begin protecting my family time. So my family had to be that priority. Are you prioritizing your family time above all else? And then third is you. Are you taking time for you? Because it's really important that you're taking care of yourself. If you can't take care of yourself, then you're going to have trouble taking care of the things that you are responsible for to take care of. So how do I place myself as a priority? I have to get rest. I have to make sure that I am taking time to rest and to recover. And then I also have to find time to have fun. And that dynamic is a hobby that I need to have that feeds me, that builds me back up, because that's where it's so important that you have something that is filling you in order that you can handle and tackle the tougher things that you have to deal with in your life. So then the other area of priority, which falls in proper alignment, is work. So I have God first, my family, myself, and then work. And then work, is it held to a proper place in my life? Am I prioritizing it in the right way and in the right place? Because sometimes work becomes the most important thing we do because we have to have money to survive and live and eat and take care of all that. And so we talked about managing our spending. So when you start putting these two things in balance and perspective, you begin to realize that if you're able to manage your spending and you're now managing your time yourself, you're now being able to properly put work where it needs to go because you have things in a proper mindset. This is what pause does. It gives you a chance to see all this because of the past. It's being able to see what's already gone through, because we cannot see what's coming yet, but we can prepare for it, and we prepare for it based on what we see the reality of our situation in our past. So when we take that time, we're able to keep things into a proper, healthy balance. So, and then the other thing that we need to learn to do is we need to learn to invest our time and not spend it. So get that mindset. So the idea of your money, we need to learn how to invest our money, even in what we spend it on. Same thing with our time. We need to learn how to invest our time, even on how we spend it with the day. And that's what pause time does, is it gives us a chance to see how we spent our time so that the next day when we plan, we can keep things in proper perspective. So we need to learn to invest our time and not spend it. Somebody once said that if you don't manage your time, somebody else will manage it for you. And this really, I heard this probably maybe 10, 15 years ago. And it always stayed with me, because when I come to places in my life where I feel like my life is more out of control, I think it's because that I haven't planned it properly, but I've allowed other things to come in the way and plan it for me, and I just have to follow that lead, which is sometimes not very healthy. So I have learned to just take a moment to do a better job of planning which direction I want my life to go. And the way I do that is I have learned to say no. I'm learning to say no, because I used to say yes to everything that came my way because I felt that that's what I had to do. But I come to realize that I have to take care of myself, all my other priorities, and the best way for me to do that is to learn to say no. There's a great story about Ken Griffey Jr., and he was invited to the Players' Choice Awards, where he was to be awarded the Player of the Decade. And the neat thing about this is that he was going to be on national TV. He had beaten out players like Barry Bonds, Mark McGwire, and on and on and on. But when he found out that the award was when it was supposed to be given, he said no. He declined to be in attendance. Why? Because he had something more important to do. He found out that his 5-year-old son, Trey, was playing in his first baseball game, and he didn't want to miss it. He didn't want to miss it. Why? Because he knew his priority. It's great to receive this amazing award, but man, that's your family time, that's your son. That has to take priority over everything else. So what do? We need to learn to establish routine in our lives, because routine really helps us to be able to manage ourselves as we manage our time. It's consistency versus confusion. Being consistent with your life rather than trying to think, what am I going to do next? Or I don't know where to go, I don't know what to do. But if you have a consistency of routine, then you're able to avoid the confusion of how to manage yourself as you manage your time. And then control versus chaos. Man, I tell you what, I used to have a lot of chaos in my life because of my work schedule, and I've managed to bring that under some semblance of control. But I've seen other people whose lives are nothing but one crisis after another, chaotic and absolutely out of control. And I think, oh my gosh, how do they even survive? How do they even get through a day? And I think it's really important that we understand that chaos is not normal, chaos is not necessary, but that as we learn how to manage ourselves, control ourselves, we'll be able to manage and control our time in a much greater way. And then as I establish routine, it helps me to invest my time wisely, as we talked about. And those are into the people I love, the relationships I cherish. It's into times of learning. I want to learn more and more, not only about my profession, but I want to learn more and more about life, myself, both professionally and personally. There's things that I want to learn how to do. And, you know, I would love to learn to play an instrument. I'd love to learn to speak a second language. I'd love to, you know, have all these things that I'd like to do, but I got to make sure that I am prioritizing the time to do that, because that's part of the learning aspect of my life that I need to make sure is open to being able to grow in that area of my life. And then my health, making sure that I'm prioritizing, investing my time wisely in what I'm eating and the exercise. And these right now, this is probably the greatest hurdle where I'm at right now. And that is investing in myself, because I'm investing in so many other things. And so I just want to challenge you this morning to make sure that you're taking time for yourself, as well as prioritizing your relationships and your own growth and development as an individual. You see, Jeremy Taylor said, God has given to man a short time here upon earth, and yet upon this short time eternity depends. So the Bible talks about this amount of time as being just a breath, but it talks about this time that God is preparing for us is a time forever and ever and ever, eternity. God is wanting us to be reminded that there is an eternity to be gained when we live this life the way that He has asked us to live it for Him. And so the whole dynamic of that is we need to remember that even on this short time, eternity depends. I want to close with a reminder of a song that many of you may be familiar with. Harry Chapin, sang a song entitled "Cats in the Cradle," and you know where I'm going with this. And the song is talking about the most important time, or how we invest in the time with our family, our kids, so on and so forth. And he starts off the song, and he's singing about, my child arrived just the other day. He came to the world in the usual way. There were planes to catch and bills to pay. He learned to walk while I was away. He was talking before I knew it, and as he grew, he said, I'm going to be like you, Dad. You know I'm going to be like you. Well, he goes on in the song to talk about how he was. And as his son is growing up, he didn't have time for him. And he wanted to play ball. He didn't have time. He had to go to work. He wanted to do this. You know, all these different things that come rushing back to me, because it seemed like work was more important. But then the final verse, he says, I've long since retired and my son's moved away. I called him up just the other day. He said, I'd like to see you if you don't mind. He said, I'd love to, Dad, if I could find the time. You see, my new job's a hassle. The kids have the flu, but it's sure been nice talking to you, Dad. It's been real nice talking to you. And as I hung up the phone, it occurred to me he'd grown up just like me. My boy was just like me. Well, so the interesting thing about this song, you know, as much as it tugs at the heartstrings, here's the dagger to the heart right here. The rest of the story about this song is that he did not write these words. His wife did. Harry Chapin's wife, Sandy, actually wrote the words to that song after their son, Josh, was born. It became a self-fulfilling prophecy. When their son was 7, Harry was performing over 200 concerts a year, and Sandy asked him when he was going to take some time to be with his son. Harry promised to make some time at the end of the summer, but he never made it. Harry Chapin was killed in a car accident in the middle of that summer, and he was unable to make good on his promise to his wife and to his son. I know that's tragic, and I know that that's kind of a guilt invoker, but it really isn't when you think about how important time is, and that we don't know how much time we have left. So therefore, we have to wisely manage our time in order to be the most effective in the way in which we live our lives. So to manage your time, you have to manage yourself. So God bless you today as you take time to plan and to pause. As you take time to identify those things in your life that are the time wasters, and those things in your life that are the priorities that you need to focus on as you plan and pause. My prayer for you this morning is that you will be challenged to manage yourself better so that you can manage your time in a proper way that it has the greatest impact, not only for you and those you love, but also for the kingdom of God. Eternity is in our hearts, and God is reminding you that He is a partner with you in how you manage and live your life. God bless you, and my prayer is for you that you will have a great week as you take time to plan and to pause. God bless you. We'll see you next week. Thank you so much.
This is my worship, this is my offering. In every moment, I withhold nothing. I'm learning to trust you, even when I can't see it. And even in suffering, I have to believe it. If you say it's wrong, then I'll say no. If you say release, I'm letting go. If you're in it with me, I'll begin. When you say to jump, I'm diving in. If you say be still, then I will wait. If you say to trust, I will obey. I don't want to follow my own way. I'm done chasing feelings. Spirit, lead me. It felt like a burden, but once I could grasp it, you took me further than I was asking. And simply to see you, it's worth it all. My life is an altar, let your fire fall. If you say it's wrong, then I'll say no. If you say release, I'm letting go. If you're in it with me, I'll begin. When you say to jump, I'm diving in. If you say be still, then I will wait. If you say to trust, I will obey. Teach me how to follow in your way. I'm done chasing feelings. Spirit, lead me. All hope is gone, and your word is all I've got. I have to believe you still bring water from the rocks to satisfy my thirst, to love me at my worst. And even when I don't remember, you remind me of my word. I don't trust my way.